Control is something we all cling to because it gives us a sense of safety. We plan, we organize, we calculate, and we try to predict what will happen tomorrow. We build walls of schedules and expectations, convincing ourselves that if we can just hold everything tightly enough, life will bend to our will. But in reality, control is an illusion. It feels solid, but like smoke, the moment you try to seize it, it dissolves. No matter how carefully you plan, life will always find a way to remind you that it cannot be contained. Illness comes uninvited, relationships shift, opportunities arise and vanish without warning, and moments you thought were certain reveal themselves to be temporary. When you live under the belief that control is real, you set yourself up for endless frustration and suffering. You expect life to obey your rules, and when it doesn't, you feel betrayed. But life never promised obedience, it promised movement, change, and growth. Control is a trick of the ego, a desperate attempt to shield itself from the unknown. It is like standing on the shore of the ocean with a bucket, trying to command the waves. You may scoop a little water, but the ocean will always return to its rhythm, unaffected by your effort. What lies beneath the obsession with control is fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of loss, fear of pain, fear of failure. Control becomes the armor we wear to face a world that feels unpredictable. But that armor does not protect, it imprisons. It narrows your vision until you can only see what you can control, what you can manage, what you can dominate, and in doing so, you miss the beauty of the unknown, the magic of surprise, the lessons of chaos. Life is not meant to be held in chains, it is meant to unfold. The truth is, the more you try to control life, the less alive you feel. Control keeps you tense, anxious, and rigid, always bracing for the moment when things don't go according to plan. And that moment always comes, yet the paradox is that the moment you accept control as an illusion, a weight begins to lift. You realize you were never meant to dictate every turn of the path. Your task is not to command the river, but to learn to flow with it. The river already knows where it is going. Think about the most meaningful experiences in your life. Were they perfectly planned, or did they arrive unexpectedly, catching you off guard, reminding you that life has its own timing? Love often enters when you stop chasing it. Opportunities appear when you release the fear of missing them. Transformation begins not when you control the outcome, but when you surrender to the process. Control tries to protect you from pain, but it also blocks joy, spontaneity, and growth. So let the illusion fall away. Recognize that you cannot hold the world in your hands. The only thing you can truly guide is your openness, your willingness to trust, and your courage to walk forward even when the path is uncertain. The irony is clear. When you release control, you do not lose power, you gain life itself. True freedom is not found in the grip of control, but in the courage to release it. We are taught that to be strong, we must hold on, command, and dominate every aspect of our lives. But that endless pursuit of control only tightens the chains around our spirit. Freedom does not come when you have mastered every detail of existence. It comes when you stop needing to. The moment you surrender, you step into a greater power than your own. You align yourself with the flow of life, and in that flow, you find a strength that cannot be manufactured by the ego. Surrender is often misunderstood as weakness. People imagine it means giving up, abandoning responsibility, or letting chaos reign. But surrender is not passive, it is active trust. It is a conscious decision to release the illusion that you must carry the entire weight of existence on your shoulders. When you surrender, you are not falling into emptiness. You are falling into the hands of a deeper wisdom, one that knows more than your mind can grasp. In that act, you free yourself from the exhausting burden of control and allow space for clarity, intuition, and grace to emerge. Think about the difference between forcing and flowing. When you force life, you push against resistance, trying to bend it to your will. Every obstacle feels like a battle, every setback like a defeat. But when you flow, you stop fighting the current. You still move forward, but you allow the river to guide you. Suddenly, what once felt like struggle becomes movement. This is the freedom that surrender brings, the freedom to live without the constant fear of being undone by the unexpected. When you let go, you open doors that control could never unlock. Creativity blooms because you are no longer trapped by rigid expectations. Relationships deepen because you are no longer trying to shape people into who you want them to be. Peace grows within you because you no longer waste energy resisting what already is. In surrender, life does not collapse, it expands. It reveals paths you never imagined, opportunities you never planned, and beauty you never noticed because you were too busy trying to control the outcome. This freedom is not the absence of responsibility. You still take action, you still make choices, but you no longer cling to the illusion that everything depends on you. You act with intention, but release the obsession with results. You do your best and then trust life to meet you halfway. That is the essence of true power, not in forcing outcomes, but in knowing when to release them. The moment you surrender, you reclaim your energy, your peace, and your soul. You discover that life is not your enemy to be conquered, but your ally to be embraced. Freedom is not in control, it is in trust, and when you trust, you finally taste the sweetness of living fully, unburdened and free. When you finally loosen your grip on control, something remarkable begins to happen. Life itself starts to flow through you. The walls you once built around yourself, those defenses, plans, and rigid expectations, begin to dissolve, and behind them, you discover the forces that have always been waiting to emerge. Creativity, love, and courage are not things you manufacture by control. They are released by letting go. They are like streams that run freely once the dam is lifted. Creativity especially thrives in openness. The controlled mind is narrow, focused only on avoiding mistakes, seeking perfection, and meeting expectations. But true creativity is born in the unknown, in the unplanned, in the space where imagination can wander without judgment. The greatest breakthroughs, the most beautiful works of art, and the most profound ideas never come from someone gripping control. They come from someone who dares to let go and trust the process, allowing inspiration to move through them instead of trying to dominate it. When you release the need to control every detail, you invite the mystery of creation to surprise you. Love, too, flourishes when control is released. To love someone while trying to control them is not love, it is fear disguised as affection. Control wants to shape another person into what you need them to be, but love accepts them as they are. The more you control, the more love suffocates. The more you let go, the more love breathes, grows, and deepens. True love is never about possession, it is about freedom. When you release your grip, you allow love to show you its natural strength, which is far greater than anything control could ever achieve. And then there is courage. At first, it may seem that letting go requires courage, but the deeper truth is that letting go gives birth to courage. Control is rooted in fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of loss, the fear of failure. But when you release control, you step into the unknown willingly. You choose to trust that even if you cannot predict tomorrow, you can face it. That act alone awakens courage. You discover strength within yourself that you did not know was there because it was buried under the constant need to control. Life is not meant to be a rigid path, carefully controlled and protected. It is meant to be a journey of discovery where creativity, love, and courage guide you into experiences that control could never allow. By surrendering, you make space for life's deeper energies to flow freely through you. You stop being a manager of existence and become a participant in its dance. The irony is that the very things you tried to control, your ability to create, your longing to love, your need for courage, begin to flourish when you release control. They were never meant to be forced, they were always meant to be revealed, and when they emerge, life does not just continue, it truly begins. Letting go often carries a stigma in people's minds. They imagine it as weakness, as if surrendering means they are incapable, irresponsible, or careless. Yet this is a misunderstanding born of fear. To surrender is not to give up, it is to trust. It does not mean you sit back and let life collapse around you. It means you stop trying to force life into shapes it was never meant to take. True surrender is not resignation, it is alignment with a wisdom far greater than the one your mind can control. When you resign, you withdraw your energy, you say, "There is nothing I can do," and you abandon your role in life's unfolding. But surrender is the opposite. It is an active release, a conscious decision to step out of the illusion of control and into the reality of flow. You still act, you still choose, you still move forward, but you do so without the desperate need to bend everything to your will. In surrender, your actions are guided not by fear of what might go wrong, but by trust in what is unfolding. Think of a sailor at sea. If he fights the wind and waves, trying to force them to obey his desires, he wastes his strength and risks capsizing. But if he surrenders, not by giving up, but by adjusting his sails, by respecting the currents, by moving with what already is, he does not lose power, he finds it. The same winds that seemed hostile now carry him. That is the difference between surrender and weakness. Weakness withdraws, surrender engages, weakness collapses, surrender adapts, weakness denies responsibility, surrender embraces it with openness. There is a quiet strength in surrender. It takes far more courage to release than it does to cling. Anyone can tighten their grip, but it takes a strong spirit to say, "I will let go of what I cannot control and place my trust in the deeper rhythm of life." That decision is not passive, it is an act of profound bravery. It shows that you are no longer ruled by fear, no longer enslaved by the ego's demand to be in charge. This does not mean you do nothing. Life still requires your presence, your effort, your discipline, but surrender changes the energy behind your effort. Instead of striving anxiously, you work with clarity. Instead of clinging desperately to outcomes, you hold them lightly, allowing space for life to bring results you may not have imagined. When you let go, you do not lose direction, you gain vision. So understand this truth: surrender is not weakness. It is not the end of effort, but the beginning of true participation in life's unfolding. When you let go, you align with a power greater than your own, and that alignment is strength. It is in that place that you discover life is not against you. It has always been waiting to carry you, if only you are willing to trust. Transformation is never born in comfort or in control. It comes when something is surrendered, when something old is released so something new can emerge. Look at nature. The seed cannot remain a seed if it wishes to become a tree. It must crack open, surrendering its form, dissolving its shell, and only then can life sprout from within. The caterpillar cannot cling to its crawling life and also discover flight. It must enter the dark cocoon, a place of surrender, where it dissolves into formlessness before it is reborn as a butterfly. These images reveal a truth that applies to us as well. Transformation comes through surrender. We often resist change because we fear the death of what is familiar. We try to control life to keep things the same, to protect ourselves from uncertainty, but in that resistance we block growth. Control seeks to preserve, but surrender opens the doorway to transformation. Just as the caterpillar must give up what it knows, so must we. When we cling to our patterns, our fears, our illusions of control, we remain in a cycle of repetition. It is only when we let go that life has room to reshape us. Transformation is rarely comfortable. It asks us to trust in the unseen, to walk into the unknown without guarantees. It feels like loss at first, the loss of stability, the loss of certainty, the loss of who we thought we were. But hidden in that loss is the seed of a greater life. Just as the seed must break to release the tree, parts of us must break open to release our true potential. The process of surrender is the bridge that carries us from who we were to who we are meant to become. Control wants to dictate the terms of transformation. It says, I will change, but only in ways I can predict, only in ways that don't hurt, only if I get to remain in charge. But transformation cannot be managed like that. Real change arrives when we surrender the illusion that we know best. Life often sees further than we do. It knows what must fall away for our growth, what must end for something new to begin. Surrender is the act of trusting that wisdom. Every great turning point in life requires this release. Moving from childhood to adulthood, from one season of life to the next, from fear into faith, all of it demands surrender. You cannot step into the new while clutching the old. You cannot rise while holding on to the ground. Surrender is the letting go that allows transformation to take root. So when you face the moments where everything feels uncertain, remember the seed and the caterpillar. Remember that breaking and dissolving are not the end. They are the threshold. Transformation asks for your surrender, and in that surrender you will not be destroyed. You will be remade. Life does not truly begin the day you are born. It begins the day you awaken to freedom, the day you release your desperate need to control and finally trust the flow of existence. Until then, you are not fully living, you are surviving, bracing, calculating, and protecting. Control keeps you locked in a narrow corridor where every step is measured and every possibility is filtered through fear. But when you let go, the walls fall away and suddenly you see how wide and expansive life really is. This is the great paradox. In trying to control everything, you miss everything. You are so focused on steering the river that you forget to feel its waters, its beauty, its mystery. But the moment you surrender, you awaken to what has always been here, the vibrant presence of life moving all around you and within you. The air feels lighter, colors brighter, moments richer. It is as if life has been waiting for you to arrive, and your arrival happens not through more effort, but through letting go. When fear loses its grip, freedom takes its place. You no longer wake each day with the heavy burden of making sure everything turns out exactly as you plan. You begin to trust that you are being guided, that the unknown is not your enemy but your teacher. In that trust, you discover a sense of peace that control could never give you. Life becomes less about struggle and more about participation, less about defense and more about discovery. This is when love deepens because you stop trying to shape it or predict it. This is when opportunities arise because you are no longer blinded by rigid expectations. This is when joy returns because you are finally free to live in the present moment instead of anxiously managing the future. Life begins in surrender because surrender reconnects you to the very heartbeat of existence. Think of the countless people who live their lives chasing certainty yet never find contentment. They build walls of control, believing safety lies within them, but those walls also block wonder, growth, and connection. When you release control, those walls collapse and you step into a life that is fuller, richer, and infinitely more real. The freedom you taste in that moment is the beginning of your true life. This is not the end of responsibility, but the beginning of purpose. You still act, you still dream, you still create, but your energy is no longer wasted in resistance. Instead, you live in alignment with the flow of life, moving where it moves, trusting where it leads. That trust does not make life easier, but it makes it meaningful. It awakens you to the truth that you were never meant to control everything. You were meant to experience it, grow through it, and be transformed by it. So remember, life does not begin when you finally have control. It begins when you no longer need it. That is when existence opens itself to you in its fullness, and you at last are truly alive.